The family of one of Jeffrey Epstein's most vocal accusers, Virginia Giuffre, they're speaking out and posing questions about the president. In a statement released to The Atlantic, Giuffre's two brothers and sister-in-law said, quote, "It makes us ask if he was aware of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal actions, especially given his was aware of Epstein's criminal actions, especially given his statements years later that his friend Jeffrey likes women on the younger side, no doubt about it." The statement continues, "We in the public are asking for answers. Survivors deserve this." Giuffre died by suicide at her home in late April. Let's get right to CNN's senior law enforcement analyst, Andrew McCabe. Andy, this is an issue because of what the president is now giving as his explanation about why he ended his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. He said, among other things, that Epstein stole employees from the spa at Mar-a-Lago. One of them was Virginia Giuffre. Listen to this.
One of those stolen, persons, does that include Virginia Giuffre?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her. And by the way, she had no complaints about us, as you know. None whatsoever.
So, Andy, so here's the thing. I mean, the language aside, he stole her, which there are a lot of people, trauma experts, say that's insensitive. If this were still an ongoing investigation, an active investigation, and someone made a public statement like that about someone being investigated, obviously Epstein killed himself, so, that investigation's over. But if this were still open and he were still alive and you heard someone say that out loud and you were still investigating this, would you want to talk to that person?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, if you were still investigating this and Epstein were still alive, you're trying to, parse your way to the very beginnings of how some of these relationships took place, who met who when, the things that the president continues to say, these little details, these little statements on Air Force One continue to complicate and really add to the picture in a way that I think is very unhelpful for him. He has consistently maintained that he never engaged in any wrongdoing with Mr. Epstein and that he wasn't aware of it. I mean, at this point, really, he should just stay with that and stop getting into the details, because every time he tosses out another morsel of fact or recollection, he further clouds this situation. I mean, the story behind Virginia Giuffre's introduction to Ghislaine Maxwell and ultimately Jeffrey Epstein is well known. It's been told many times. She was an employee at Mar-a-Lago, worked in the spa. Ghislaine Maxwell saw her and struck up a conversation, and it went from there. So again, once again, part of what he's saying here seems to align with that, but in a way that's not particularly clear. If, as an investigator, you would definitely drill down on that.
Yeah, and again, there is no suggestion the president himself did anything wrong. No reason to suggest that he has. But what kind of questions would you now ask him based on this revelation? Were this still an active investigation?
Yeah, well, each time he goes back to these things, he kind of opens up the door and indicates that he has a little bit more knowledge, maybe a little bit more recollection of the people and the events than he originally suggested. And so you would push on that. Okay, well, who was Virginia Giuffre? Well, so tell me about the spa where she worked. What was her role there? How old was she when she worked there? And, who was her supervisor? You start to identify other people who might be able to add to this narrative. And then, okay, what did you mean by he stole her? Are we simply talking about he recruited an employee away from your business? Or, you would really just kind of very carefully push on that narrative to get as many additional facts as you could.
Look, if this were still an active investigation, that statement might mean a lot more. Let me ask you something specific that Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer is calling for now. He's calling the FBI to conduct a counterintelligence threat assessment of the Epstein files. Is this just something you might hear from an opposition leader, or could there be real national security issues for what's in this file?
It's well, I don't think there's. It's hard to imagine the current national security issues still related to the now long-time deceased Jeffrey Epstein. But there's a couple of things here that I think are important. At first, it's, intelligence agencies do not typically ever confirm or deny the existence or the identity of an intelligence source. There's really good reasons for that, right? If you start denying it with people who aren't, then sooner or later you get asked about someone who is, and then you can't deny that. And so you've kind of revealed your source inadvertently. So I think if the Bureau does go back and conduct a review, they may already have an opinion or an intelligence assessment on this question. If they are willing to provide that to Congress or to the leadership, it will be in a classified setting that cannot be shared with others. So I think, the Senator Schumer, like, talking about these things publicly, it's really just kind of fanning the flames of the many different conspiracy theories around this issue. I doubt that we'll ever publicly get to a resolution of that one either.
Andrew McCabe, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much.
So this morning, we are hearing from the family of Virginia Giuffre. She is one of the most prominent victims of Jeffrey Epstein. She died by suicide earlier this year, and her family is now responding to President Trump's comment that she was, quote unquote, stolen by Jeffrey Epstein from working at Trump's Mar-a-Lago club. Giuffre's two brothers and her sisters-in-law told The Atlantic in an exclusive statement this: "It makes us ask if he was aware of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal actions, especially given his statement 2 years later that his good friend Jeffrey likes women on the younger side. No doubt about it." Her family also saying that we and the public are asking for answers. Survivors deserve this. President Trump has not been accused of any wrongdoing in connection with Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. This all does come out, though, just as CNN has learned the grand jury transcripts that the Justice Department is asking be unsealed includes testimony from just 2 witnesses. And they reportedly are from law enforcement officials, not from any victims. CNN's Caitlin Polance is tracking this one. She's joining us right now. Caitlin, what are you learning about this?
Okay, this is coming in a disclosure from the Justice Department describing what those grand jury records may be to the judge as they make their case to this judge in Manhattan's federal court that grand jury records related to the Epstein case and the Ghislaine Maxwell criminal case should be released. So it does say in this disclosure from the Justice Department that there are only 2 witnesses that went before the grand jury, an FBI agent and a New York City police detective who has a focus on child exploitation. In the world of grand jury activity, Kate, those would be called summary witnesses, the types of witnesses that had talked to victims, have information about the case, and then are presenting it to the grand jury, essentially giving the grand jury what they need to decide on whether to indict Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and then it becomes a roadmap for trial. So the concern here for some people looking at what may be in the Epstein files that the Justice Department and the FBI and even the court may have, is this the whole pie? It would not be. This would be the roadmap for a trial. And in this court filing that the Justice Department filed in court, the judge is still reviewing, there is a hint that what is in these filings, they're the sort of things that would already be public. There is an indication that the victims whose accounts relating to Jeff Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell that were subject of the grand jury testimony, those people testified at trial, and what they testified at trial was very consistent with what those 2 witnesses told the grand jury about what the victims had to say. So this really may not be the full extent of what is known by the Justice Department or by the FBI in this long-running investigation that ended up in the conviction at trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. It is one of those things, though, that we are just going to have to wait and see what is in those grand jury transcripts, if they are released by the judge, if the judge agrees with this. And we also have to remember, Kate, that there are a number of people on Capitol Hill and elsewhere who are calling for the release of more records that may be out there, and also to hear from Ghislaine Maxwell herself.
Yeah.
Kate?
Those grand jury transcripts, sealed or unsealed, that's under the control of the judge. The Justice Department, though, and this is what you're getting at, the Justice Department has much more material that they could release, that they have currently and could release under the Attorney General of the United States. And that is one of the big outstanding questions and one of the big questions coming from Capitol Hill as well. Caitlin, thank you so much.